Red alert. Janet Yellen of the Treasury calls an emergency meeting because of the turmoil that banks are going through. Banks are dropping like flies, and the Treasury and the Federal Reserve are trying to stem the damage. Why don't you know more about this? Could it be because they don't want you to panic? Hang on.
This is not financial nor professional advice. This video is for entertainment only.
Hey everyone, Stephen Fox here. Is this a repeat of 2008? That is the existential question we have in front of us. And there's some significant differences, but I think 2008 is sort of a blessing in disguise, or a nightmare that could be a blessing in this case, simply because the Fed and the Treasury and the executive branch learned things from that disaster. And what they've learned from that is they're going full scale into panic mode and loaning banks all kinds of money. And it's not being made a big deal of. They're acting like this is just everyday business. But we have news from Bloomberg that it is not business as usual. But they are taking care of things. And I think they're more or less going to back it up to the full extent anyway. It really doesn't matter if Congress says, oh, we're going to cover all the deposits, or if they come out and verbally say they're going to cover all the deposits. I believe they're going to cover them all anyway by the things that they've set up. Please smash that like button because it helps me to be able to keep explaining these difficult concepts. So Janet Yellen recently called an emergency meeting just to coordinate all their disaster relief programs that they have for banks. One is the Bank Term Funding Program. That is a longer-term lending to banks. It gives banks an advance payments from the Federal Reserves so that they don't have to cash in their bonds that are worth way less because interest rates have gone from 0 to 5% in a year. And when you raise interest rates, the value of the bonds they're holding go way down, and they don't want to cash them in. But the Federal Reserve is accepting that as collateral. So the long and short of it is that the banks don't have to cash in worthless bonds, and because the Federal Reserve is lending them money by giving them advance payments from the Federal Reserve. So it's all complicated. They also have a shorter term program, which is the discount window. And you can think of the BTFP, the Bank Term Funding Program, as being a longer term sort of lending to the banks, while the discount window is your daily emergency program, and they're paying out like 112 billion per day to support these banks. It's just wild. In fact, they are paying out more now with this discount window than they ever did during the 2008 financial crisis. But don't panic. Okay. The reason not to panic is the emergency procedures have already been set up. It's not something that they've had to think about and agonize about. They knew exactly what to do, and they're on it, and they're going to back up everything, whether they're saying it out loud or not. The effect of these procedures is to hold banks up until they can be acquired by somebody else. And somebody else will get a sweetheart deal and pay 30 to 50 cents on the dollar, and they will get bailed out. They can't let depositors lose major money. They can't let people lose faith in the banking system. They're not going to do it. This is going to be okay. So, how much trouble are we in? The best analogy I can give is if it's as if you were on a plane and the pilot announces after you hear an explosion to the right side of the plane that we have lost one of our engines. But don't worry, folks, we can make it back to the airport on one engine. Okay. Now, you're not exactly relieved, but this actually happens fairly often. Not often, but it's not that unusual of an occurrence that a plane makes it back or makes it to the next airport or to a nearby airport on one engine. They can do that. And in fact, they can make it to an airport with no engines if they are high enough up in the air, because a plane is basically a glider, and when it starts to come down, it gathers speed and then it takes off again. And so they've got like 50 to 100 miles. And if they're within that range of a nearby airport, it might be longer than that. I'm not certain of that. But if they're within range of a nearby airport, they can make it. And there have been planes that have landed with no engines working. So how much trouble is the stock market in? Well, this is almost progressing almost exactly like 2008. The NASDAQ has recently been going up. Do you know that in 2008, April through like June, the stock market continued to go up? And particularly technology, particularly the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was going up more than the S&P 500 during that April to approximately June period. So the similarities are frightening. Back then, it was the housing. It was because banks had made too many bad loans to home buyers, that people that really weren't qualified to buy homes were being qualified, and it all came back on the banks and on the home buyers. And so you had the home buyers and the banks having trouble. In fact, in 2008, that was the beginning of hundreds. Eventually, there was like a year or two of bank failures, and hundreds of banks went broke. Okay. And this is where the Treasury and the Federal Reserve learned how to handle a disaster, and they are handling a disaster, and they're handling it better than they did last time. Last time we lost both engines, and we were gliding in and hoping we were close enough to an airport that we could make it in, and we did make it in with no engines. Well, this time we have one engine working, and that's the employment numbers, but that's going to get worse. We're going to go into a recession. There is no doubt of that in my mind anyway. So prepare for a recession, and the stock market has never bottomed without having the recession. In other words, the stock market never bottoms before a recession. It always bottoms during the recession. So this is the time to go to a money market or a treasury bond or some kind of bond, or maybe a CD if you're into that, because that's the safe place to hang out. And hopefully this will be shorter, because we do have that one engine going into. We're in better financial shape than we were back then, but also we have more debt than we had back then. So it's. I hope that one engine keeps firing. I just hate those plane landings when you have no engines. It's a little more tense. You got one shot at landing. You're not going to bypass the airport. There is a silver lining to this disaster, and that is banks going broke is a deflationary effect. In fact, I think Jerome Powell forced himself to raise it 0.25 this last time. I don't think he really wanted to do that, but he sort of had to maintain credibility of the Fed, because they've been talking like they were going to go 0.5, and then they realized, oh, we better go 0.25. And I think they've been saying we're going to be on this interest rate path for so long. They were forced to do it just to maintain credibility. But almost no one believes that they're going to raise it anymore. It is possible that they will try to keep it at the 5% level where it is right now. They will try to keep that at 5% and hold that until inflation goes down, and it's going down. It's already coming down to 6% according to their figures. It's coming down more than that according to other people's figures, such as the Trueflation site. But these banks going broke like this is major deflation causing events. By the end of this year, we will have 3% inflation, if that. In fact, deflation may become a problem. And it will be this sort of situation where, well, can we ever raise interest rates again for a long while? So it's going to be day and night. These things, you have lived through several decades of financial dealings in the last 3 or 4 years. I've never seen this much change and this rapid of change in my life. But we've had a 100-year health problem occur. We have war in Europe. Wow, you are going through some cataclysmic events like we haven't experienced for 50, 60, 70, 100 years, in some cases. So these are very strange times, and I think we're going to make it through it, but we have a rough patch here, and you want to dive for safety, at least in my mind, at this point, because I think the main thing is to stay safe. You can't overcome these worldwide pressing events. We will overcome them eventually, but there's a lot of working out to do. And the Fed, they really needed to start raising interest rates a lot earlier, and they can take a lesson from that. But they're going to take a lesson from Paul Volcker in that they're not going to reduce the interest rates right away, and they're going to be slow to do that, and probably things will break more because they don't do that fast enough. But their nightmare is that the inflation just keeps going on. But I don't think it's going to be inflation fighting by the end of this year. They're going to find themselves fighting deflation and depression. And the interest rate tool now predicts that there's an 88% chance that the Fed will leave the rates the way they are. They'll leave it at 5%. I personally think that the chances are about 99% that they'll do that. It absolutely makes no sense because you have the banks breaking and going broke, doing the work for the Fed now. Classically, this is so classic. The Fed always goes too far. They always keep going until something breaks because that's what causes deflation. And we're going to have deflation eventually. There are times when it's most important to avoid disaster in the stock market. I think this is one of these times. I think we're going to pull through it. But I think we have to get a little cover for now. And my cat is agreeing with me, I believe. So smash the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that little notification bell. And I will plan to see you in the future. I think we're going to get through this. We just got to hang on for now.